About 3 minutes to the commencement of the House business this afternoon of the 18th day of September, the year 2024. This is the National Assembly proceedings from the Parliament buildings in Nairobi. It's a live broadcast that is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. A very good afternoon to you, and we are glad that you have managed to join us for this business of the National Assembly members this afternoon. The business that the members are set to transact this afternoon includes resumption of a special motion on the consideration of a nominee for appointment as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. This follows a report by the Joint Parliamentary Committee that vetted the nominee. This includes the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs, together with the Senate Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations. A report that was laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, the 17th of September, the year 2024. It will be a resumption of a debate. Remember, this debate kicked off during the Wednesday morning sitting, that is this morning sitting. However, the debate has not been concluded, and this afternoon it is part of the business that has been lined up to continue on the floor of the House once the House commences its business. Now, you will recall that in the Speaker's communication on the 17th of September, the year 2024, that is Tuesday afternoon sitting, it was indicated that the question time for cabinet secretaries, remember this has been the norm until when the cabinet, until when was dismissed, and it had to wait until the appointment of new cabinet secretary or the formation of yet another cabinet. So now we have cabinet secretaries in place, and this afternoon the cabinet secretary for education, Mr. Julius Ogamba Migos, is scheduled to appear before the National Assembly chambers, that is during this plenary sitting, on this afternoon sitting, to be able to respond to various concerns. These are issues that arose from Speaker's Kamukunji that was held on Tuesday, 20th August, the year 2024. And these questions revolve around the education sector, and thereby the Cabinet Secretary for Education will be appearing, or is set to appear before the National Assembly this afternoon. Some of the issues that the Cabinet Secretary will be responding to as he appears before the National Assembly chambers this afternoon is to provide a comprehensive report and update on the progress made on the implementation of the new funding model for higher education. You will recall that this has been an issue not just to the parents, but also the university students or the higher education learners. And this afternoon, the issues around this matter, as the Cabinet Secretary appears before the National Assembly, he will be able to shed more light on the controversies that surround this particular funding model for higher education. Also on that point is to state measures that have been put in place by the Ministry of Education to simplify the model and enlighten the general public, particularly parents, as I indicated earlier, the guardians, as well as students on the model. this is one of the areas that the parents, the guardians, and students will be keen to try and understand and see whether the issues that are not as clear to them, whether they will be made clear or whether they will be able to understand how this particular model will be working. Also, the Cabinet Secretary will be needed to provide the approximate total cost of education for an individual from the basic education level to the tertiary level, and state the amount of money that goes towards education bursaries and scholarships every year. Also, to provide a list of bursaries and scholarship schemes with corresponding amounts that the ministry administers through each state department. That is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula, already inside the chambers. He will be presiding over this afternoon sitting. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast that is brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. My name is Kamche Menza. Good afternoon.
Waheshimiwa, tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umetua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala haki wa wanadamu, tukusihi utazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao wameridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Tunakuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Sergeant, ring the quorum bell.
Those are members of the National Assembly making their way into the chambers. Remember, the prayer has been said and the chair has been taken. So the House did not have the requisite number of members, but that is the Sergeant at Arms. Remember, as tradition, that is an indication that we should wait to find out whether it is the quorum that has been achieved. Yes, it is. It has been achieved.
Clerk.
Allow me to hand you over to the broadcast.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honorable members at the bar, take the nearest seat. Honorable members, I have a petition regarding legal recognition and protection of e-hailing motorcycle riders and delivery personnel. Honorable members, Article 119 of the Constitution accords any person the right to petition Parliament to consider any matters within its authority. Further, Standing Order 2252B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other than those presented by a member. In this regard, I wish to report to the House that my office has received a petition from the Digital Border Riders and Deliveries Association of Kenya, led by one Calvin Okumu, their chairperson, seeking the recognition and protection of e-hailing motorcycle riders and delivery personnel. Honorable members, the association is seeking for the recognition of the cyclist transport subsector, popularly known as the border industry, which has become a strategic part of the Kenya transport system, providing last-mile connectivity and creating employment opportunities for thousands of Kenyans and significantly transforming the sector. The Digital Border Riders and Deliveries Association of Kenya further contend that despite the association representing a large community of digital riders who operate through various platforms in the digital industry, they face a myriad of challenges. These challenges include, but are not limited to, unfair classifications of drivers, lopsided contracts, oppressive pricing formulas, unfavorable working conditions, unfair compensation, arbitrary administrative actions, unlawful account deactivation, data protection violations, and lack of recognition of riders' welfare associations, among other attendant issues. The association claims that other digital platforms such as Bolt, Glovo, and Uber charge excessive commissions exceeding the 18% recommended for the e-hailing subsector. This subjects riders to losses or profits after accounting losses of or no profits after accounting for operational costs. Moreover, riders lack designated parking areas, leading to unfair harassment from traffic police and county officials. Lastly, the Digital Border Drivers draws the attention of the House to insufficient government oversight over the operations of transport network companies and a legal and regulatory gap in which the digital riding subsector is currently not recognized by labor laws. They note that this has led to unfair treatment and exploitation of the riders. Honorable member of the Digital Border Drivers and Deliveries Association concludes by praying that the National Assembly, 1, enacts or amends relevant legislation to formally recognize digital riders as a core subsector of the transport industry and ensure their rights are protected. 2, recommends necessary amendments of the National Transport and Safety Authority, Transport Network Owners, Drivers, and Passengers Regulations 2022 to include motorcycles as vehicles protected under the regulations. And 3, inquires into the urgently recommended appropriate legal and regulatory reforms on, among others, the operations of transport network companies, including pricing mechanisms and contract terms, establishing a minimum wage for e-hailing riders and minimum contractual terms, the empowerment of rider welfare organizations, fair hearing before adverse actions against riders, clear timelines for addressing their complaints, both internally and externally, review of the minimum costs of deliveries, designation of specific parking areas for riders, and training of riders on county regulations. Honorable members, the request of the association is well within the authority of this House, pursuant to Article 95(2) of the Constitution, which provides that the National Assembly deliberates on and resolves issues of concern to the people. Given the nature of the prayers sought by the e-hailing motorcycle riders, I hereby commit this matter to the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure for consideration. The committee is required to consider the matters contained in the prayers of the association, conduct an inquiry and report its findings to the House and to the petitioners. Further, the committee will also be expected to provide policy and legislative interventions to be actualized by this House to bring this matter, which keeps recurring, to closure. I thank you. Yes, Murugara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. A comment on this petition, which is quite timely. It's a plea by some youngsters who actually earn their bread by riding borders, and they associate with some companies that are supposed to be informally their employers. But we know for sure that these companies have not been treating these border riders well, including drivers of taxis and other vehicles that are registered with those companies. Therefore, this petition is timely because while we solve the issue of border riders on the digital platform, we would possibly extend it to the taxi drivers who are also suffering the same fate. So this is timely, and the committee should move this speed and resolve the plea as made to them. Thank you.
Member for Langata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Definitely, this petition affects most of our residents who ride borders, and not only the border riders, but also the digital taxi operators. It is time that the industry is regulated, and even not mentioned in that petition is the worldwide rates that most of these companies use to charge in different countries. As we speak, Kenya, if you do your research, and this is something we've done, and I was here when they presented the petition, they're the ones who pay the lowest rates, and they charge high, and the taxi drivers and the border riders have to have a bigger percentage of what is charged. Nowadays, if you take the digital borders or taxis, you'd see how frustrated the drivers are or the riders are when the final destination cost comes on their phones. And they would always request and ask you, kindly, can you add me something? Or the commonly used language, imeleta ngapi? Baada ya kusema imeleta ngapi, they'll always request that tafadhali niongeze kitu. But if this sector is actually regulated, the riders and the drivers will have a better negotiating rate with the owners of these companies. This petition is timely, and we have to discuss and finish it once and for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Justice Kemei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also add my comment on this very vital sector of the economy. Mr. Speaker, when you look at transport, you will be able to understand how the economy moves. And borders in this country have occupied such a pivotal role in the economy of the nation that we cannot just look aside and fail to regulate them. Mr. Speaker, much as you've mentioned about policy and legislative aspect of this petition, Mr. Speaker, I would rather we look at it globally. So if it pleases you, Mr. Speaker, you may direct that the committee looks at border sector at the very global nature so that we can be able to regulate this sector, bring normalcy in this sector, bring safety and other issues, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support it, and I wish the committee would act expeditiously on the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also stand to support this petition. I think it is well in order that we do get legal recognition for, they've actually been able to do this very successfully. And so this particular legal recognition will not only help the riders, but it will also help the consumers of this service, because already so many of us consume this service. And as the honorable member who has just spoken has said, it has become inevitable that this is recognized as a mode of transport in this country, and more importantly so. So I'd just like to encourage the team that has brought this petition forward, but also to just tell them that especially in the rural areas, let's also consider putting in and using the USSD code, because not everyone has a smartphone, and they would also really benefit from this service. With those few remarks, I do support the petition. I thank you.
Ruku.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Transport sector is one of very key transport sector which can be able to employ many young people and create many job opportunities, Mr. Speaker. And I think it is high time also, as we support this petition, Mr. Speaker, to call upon the Minister in charge of transport to ensure this is a sector which is well regulated, which is where they incentivize so that we can have many investors in this sector. Mr. Speaker, over 50% of the income of the low earning or those who are at the bottom of pyramid, they spend their income on transport. And that is huge compared to the other 50% will be spent on rent and also food. So it's a huge amount of money which goes to transport from those who are at the bottom of the pyramid, Mr. Speaker. And for that cost to come down, Mr. Speaker, will require proper reorganization of this sector so that more investment can be made in the transport sector, and we can also see the border and tax drivers are not also making losses when they are doing their day-to-day business. Everyone must be able to survive. Everyone must be able to provide for his family or our family, Mr. Speaker. I think this petition is very timely, but it also calls upon the Minister of Infrastructure and Transport to put more time into looking into organizing and seeing how we can have more investors, reorganizing this sector for everyone who is in that sector to go home happy, making some money, and at the same time, reducing the cost of those who are at the bottom of the pyramid. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
KJ, as KJ comes, I want to acknowledge that 3 of the representatives of the petitioners are in the speaker's gallery. You can see them dressed in reflectors. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. And there is no place where the border business has rubber-stamped its influence like in the cities.
Take 2 minutes.
If you come to Nairobi City, you realize how important the people who are represented by the 3 gentlemen in the gallery are. Mr. Speaker, this petition gives us opportunity for 3 things. 1, organizing this sector into something that enables us to professionalize it. After professionalizing it, Mr. Speaker, we now start moving towards what we were promising when we were on top of cars and in rallies, saying that hii serikali ni ya mtu ya boda. In organizing, when we are making plans going forward, you realize that even our roads do not provide for the safety of the riders because we have constructed roads for motor vehicles without recognition that there is other motorized traffic that is two-wheeled. But finally, Mr. Speaker, there is the issue of technology. But technology must be approached carefully. When we talk about hailing applications, we've got to ask ourselves, how is the share of the proceeds done between the owner who is the proprietor of the technology and the person who has spent the money buying the boda, the person who is riding it, to the extent that we are realizing that if we move in technology that we do not own, we might end up enslaving our people with new technology that we're importing in a drive towards globalization, where we have companies that are not only just masking us with the idea that they are bringing in capital, but the real thing that they are doing is perpetuating an extractive economy, so that everything that we saw during the time of the slave trade, what we saw in colonization, can be perpetuated using technology that we import that we do not own. Let us develop our own technology to enable these people to have a hailing technology that is homegrown, so that all the proceeds, 100%, can remain in the country, Kenya. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Aji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, also rise to support and to say that I think Dagoretti North is one of those serious constituencies that has taken into a 24-hour job creation, and mostly the border border. We now even have the electric border borders and Uber. And Mr. Speaker, I know the challenges we face, especially with the police force. And I'm hoping that this petition will come in, not just to look at the digital border border riders, but also to look at the whole sector of border border. That I want to see now us moving and ensuring every border border has a QR code. We have young people who have IDs who are, because it's a serious business, Mr. Speaker. Today, as I speak, I have very many young people who have refused to go to school also, who are just on these border borders, and I'm hoping even as the new police boss comes in, that this is one sector he's going to just create good jobs for our people, because we have people who are taking school, their children to school through this sector. So I want to really thank those who have brought the petition and to say I know most of them are in Dagoretti North and I will support them also, but I want us to support and have a better way of doing this work together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Last, Cherorot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity so that I support the petition on the border border. Mr. Speaker, it is one of the border border actually is one of the means of transport that has really helped our country. Since the introduction, transportation has been so easy, and also it has created some network in our poor roads, and it has helped even through by assisting, especially those who are less fortunate in the society. Last Saturday, Mr. Speaker, I launched in Kipkeli on East Border Border Circle. And this one, Mr. Speaker, I think is going to help, especially when we go back to our model, the bottom-up economy. It is going to help, especially those who are in this business, Mr. Speaker. I want to say that also, by actually regulating is going to help us a great deal, especially to protect those who are using border border as a means of earning their day-to-day income, and also as a means of transportation. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the committee should be able to fast-track and make sure that this thing is sorted out, and so that we can be able to help and assist those who are actually depending in this sector. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I support the petition. Thank you.
GK.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It is true that this digital Border Border and Drivers Association of Kenya members are facing a myriad of challenges, and the main issue here, Honorable Speaker, is that the platforms that hold this association are quite extractive and parasitic, and these guys work very hard to earn a living like all of us, and should be supported in all ways. Honorable Speaker, as the chair of the Committee on Transport and Infrastructure, we will engage all the stakeholders and avail the necessary registration and support. Honorable Speaker, we will meet this association and other concerned stakeholders and see how we can better this sector. Honorable Speaker, I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, GK. Mukunji, you have come late. You're standing up before I even call your name. I'll give you 1 minute. The House starts at 2:30.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm sorry, because I was handling other businesses that involved my constituents. But Honorable Speaker, let me say that I met this gentleman outside in Parliament here. And Honorable Speaker, one of the things I recognized is how disciplined they were while they were bringing their petition in this assembly. And considering our experience with Maandamano, Honorable Speaker, I really commend the young people who are over 1,000 outside here bringing a petition led by their chairman. And Honorable Speaker, they have raised very pertinent issues, among them the issue of how we are treating our digital labor, which, Honorable Speaker, is something that this National Assembly must deal critically to ensure that digital labor is entrenched in our labor laws and they can be able to rely and go to court when they are suppressed. Honorable Speaker, the young gentlemen who I met here have suffered a lot, even from our county governments, because, Honorable Speaker, they are not recognized as border riders who have spots in this county, Honorable Speaker. There is a need for even county governments to actually ensure that they're able to transact their businesses, ensure that they are not harassed when they come to the city center, and they are able to move freely, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
1 minute must be over, clerk. I gave you 1 minute.
Let me just add a point, Honorable Speaker, okay. Then I sit down. Yes. I would like to call the committee to really check on the fairness of their pay, on how they are able to bring their issues in terms of dispute resolution, because currently the dispute resolution is one-sided, Honorable Speaker, when it comes to solving their problems. The pricing mechanism of what they do is not well defined. So they are actually harassed when they bring issues. The issues of their pension, because these are workers, issues of their health insurance must be well looked at, Honorable Speaker, while the committee is sitting to actually look at this petition. And I call upon also the holders of this digital.
Your time is up. Your time is up. You are at liberty to appear before the committee and present those notes that you are reading so that they can be able to use them as well. Chairman of Transport, I deliberately sidestepped the Committee on Public Petitions to give you this petition so that you can take the opportunity to deal with the chaotic situation in our public transport sector. I expect you to bring a report within 60 days. If earlier, the better.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, September 18th, 2024, in the afternoon sitting. 1, end of term report for financial year 2018-2019, 2019-2020, 2020-2021, 2021-2022, 2022-2023, 2023-2024 from the Salaries and Remunerations Commission. 2, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission's second quarterly report for the year 2024, covering the period from 1st April 2024 to 30th June 2024 from the Office of the Auditor General. 3rd, the 54th Monetary Policy Statement from the National Treasury and Economic Planning. And 4, financial statements for the Pest Control Products Board, PCPB, for the year ended 30th June 2023 from the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. I thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay.
Vice Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Labor.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 18 September 2024. Report of the Departmental Committee on Labor on its consideration of the Senate's amendment to the Public Service in Quote Value and Principles Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2022. Thank you.
You finished? Member of Delegation in the Parliamentary Union. Is that what he has done? Next order. KJ. KJ, are you supposed to table anything? You've forgotten?
Honorable Speaker, I thank you for your indulgence and the prompting. I do appreciate that. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, which is Wednesday, 18th September 2024. And what I'm seeking to lay, Mr. Speaker, is a report of the 148th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union and the related meetings held in Geneva, Switzerland, from 23rd to 27th of March 2024. Mr. Speaker, for information, the Interparliamentary Union is a parliament that brings together 186 parliaments. It is also known as the Parliament of Parliaments, and a Kenyan delegation did attend the said meeting, and it is that paper that I do beg to lay this afternoon on the floor of the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable KJ, and those who lay papers, it cannot be an excuse for making a speech. You just lay the paper on the table and you end there. If it will have an opportunity to be debated, then you can say what you are saying. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Kiarie.
Mr. Speaker, I do wish to give a notice of motion.
To give notice is not a wish.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion.
Very good.
That this House notes the report of the 148th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union and the related meetings held in Geneva, Switzerland from the 23rd to the 27th of March, which I now lay on the table of the House this afternoon, Wednesday, 18th September 2024. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, KJ. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honorable Geoffrey Ruku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A request for a statement regarding the status of compensation of public servants who died from COVID-19 disease. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 44.2c, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Health regarding the status of payment of the last expense and death gratuity to survivors of beneficiaries of the National Health Insurance Fund and the Public Service Superannuation Scheme. Honorable Speaker, Article 43 of the Constitution entitles every person to the right to social security, which include indemnity and compensation to beneficiaries under the scheme in the occurrence of misfortune. It is in furtherance to this constitutional principle that the National Health Insurance Fund and the Public Service Superannuation Scheme offers last expense and death gratuity to survivors of the beneficiaries of the respective scheme. Regrettably, the family of the late Moses Muturi Ndwiga, PF number 20090000918, who succumbed to COVID-19 while serving in Nyeri County as the acting director under the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing, and Urban Development, is yet to receive the last expense and death benefits. This disturbing case is among an estimated 800 beneficiaries under the National Health Last Expense Scheme and 400 entitled to gratuity under the Public Service superannuation scheme, particularly those who died between 2019 and 2021, hence deserving urgent intervention. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request the chairperson of Departmental Committee on Health to place the House on the following. 1, a report on the number of beneficiaries enrolled for the RAS expense under the National Health Insurance Fund, under the death gratuity, under the Public Service Superannuation Scheme. Payouts made so far as compensation or pension and pending claims. 2, reasons why the NHIF and the Public Service Superannuation Scheme have not compensated the families and beneficiaries who died were covered by the two schemes. 3, strategies and timelines that the ministry intends to implement to ensure immediate remittance of the last expense and death gratuity to beneficiaries, particularly the family of the late Moses Muturi Dwega, PF number 2009000918, worked at the State Department for Housing in Nyeri County. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chairperson, Health Committee. Where is Dr. Bukose? Any member of the Committee of Health? Can you, Madenge, advise your chairman that you bring a response in 2 weeks? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Kieni, you requested to say something about the Endarasha tragedy. Remember yesterday I gave a statement to the House and we had a moment of silence in honor of our departed children. So I'll give you 2 minutes as the area member of parliament to eulogize and empathize with the families.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Coming late after others and the whole parliament gave a moment of silence. But I want to say that it was a very tragic moment for us in Kieni, where we lost 21 students, 19 in the Inferno, 2 in hospital, and still 3 are hospitalized in various hospitals in this country. Mr. Speaker, when we say this, we want to appreciate and thank those people who came on time to give their condolences, to give us their best wishes for the departed ones, inclusive the one and the only one, the head of state of this country, His Excellency, the Deputy President, the Speaker, inclusive the Speaker, and there's so many CSs and PSs who came on time to give their condolences. In this time, I want to also appreciate that the government presence in the whole of this tragedy was really notable. They came on time, and we all thank the many other people who gave their condolences in the country and beyond and other countries of the world. Mr. Speaker, I cannot only talk about the 21 who died in Kieni, forgetting the 6 who lost their lives in Kibwezi. And we say this is a very bad moment for this country, where we have lost more than 30 students in various places in accident, both fire and load accidents. And on this one, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity and also to tell the community in Endarasha, and particularly the director of Hillside Academy, who have always been giving us the best in education. It was the home of 824 students, and it has always performed very well in our local and national examinations. And for this one, we are calling upon the government to give any possible assistance, because a school that is housing that population of students is one that needs to be helped to raise up, and more so because we have students also who are going to sit for the KIPSEA examinations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Cheney, and we gave our collective condolences yesterday. Honorable members, allow me to acknowledge the following institutions in the public gallery: Our Lady of Lourdes Girls High School, Kieni, Nyeri; Ikatini Secondary School from Masinga, Machakos; Kagonge Boys High School from Runyenjes, Embu; Inoro Girls Secondary School from Laikipia East, Laikipia; Chebwai SDS School from Malava, Kakamega. I have been requested by Honorable Mwalio from Masinga to acknowledge. You can acknowledge your school and all other schools on behalf of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to take this opportunity to welcome all the students and the teachers who have been able to visit Parliament and watch and learn the proceedings of this House. I want to tell you that you are most welcome. And particularly, I want to welcome my school, Ikatini Secondary School, which is one of my best schools in the constituency and has benefited a lot from the NGCDF projects. So I would like you to watch and see how business is conducted in this House, so that you learn as in future you are the leaders, you might be able to even to find yourself in this House in the future. So you are most welcome to see how we debate and how we tackle things in an orderly manner. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. God bless you.
Thank you. On behalf of the House of Parliament and my own behalf, I welcome all those schools to the House of Parliament. John Carrier.
Mr. Speaker, this would be of interest to all the members in the House today, and I do stand to give a statement regarding the extension of the application period for the recruitment of ICT interns under the Presidential Digital Talent Program. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 44, bracket D, I wish to inform the House of the recruitment of interns under the Presidential Digital Talent Program, the PDTP Cohort 9. Honorable Speaker, the ICT Authority is in the process of recruiting 400 ICT interns to Cohort 9 of the Presidential Digital Talent Program, the PDTP, under the Ministry of Information, Communication, and the Digital Economy. The Presidential Digital Talent Program was launched in 2015 as a public-private partnership program to actualize the government's commitment to the leverage of ICT to enhance citizen service delivery. The key components of the program are skills development, on-job coaching, mentorship, training, certification, and ICT innovations. Interns recruited to the program undertake a 12-month internship program whose objective is to develop ICT high-end skills in recent graduates, offer a platform for structured training, coaching, mentoring, and promote ICT innovation and solutions development. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the ICT Authority opened the online recruitment portal of Cohort 9 ICT interns on the 27th. And Mr. Speaker, kindly, I can't even hear myself. There's some very high consultation. I'm having
members who are consulting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your protection. Honorable Speaker, the ICT Authority opened the online recruitment portal of Cohort 9 ICT interns on the 27th of August 2024 and set to, tomorrow, Thursday 16th September 2024, as the deadline for submission of applications. In appreciation of the need to net as many budding tech-savvy youth as possible from across the constituencies, the committee, our Committee of Communication, Information, and Innovation, approached the ministry to extend the deadline from the initial deadline that was Monday yesterday. And I'm delighted to inform this House that the ministry, through the ICT authority, acceded to our request and has extended the period for applications to Cohort 9 Presidential Digital Talent Program to Monday, 23rd September 2024. And I therefore urge all members of Parliament to circulate the information to their respective constituents and encourage the qualified candidates to take advantage of the extension period to apply so that they can join this most amazing program of the Presidential Digital Talent Program, PDTP. Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and I signed this on the 16th of September, 2024. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, KJ. And next order.
Order number 8, special motion, consideration of a nominee for appointment as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. Resumption of debate.
Honorable members, I'll give you direction as follows on this motion. I watched and listened to the morning debate. There was not a single dissenting voice. I want to allocate this motion 30 minutes before we call in the Minister for Education. Those I'll give an opportunity to speak will be allocated 2 minutes, and after 25 minutes, I'll call the mover to reply, then we put the question. Is that okay with the House? Right. Kiunjuri?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I really want to join other members who spoke in the morning and support the nomination of the Inspector General nominee, Douglas Kalanja, whom all of us have described as a man of integrity. The speakers who spoke before me gave the history of this man as one who have risen through the ranks. I want to give my own testimony because I've interacted with him on several occasions, and especially when the insecurity was at its rise in Laikipia County. I also have known him for the last 15 years. I want to testify that he's a man who is gracious enough to even allow a conversation, give advice as an elderly citizen of the Republic of Kenya. He would be able to put aside issues now of being a professional officer and also give advice on how we can secure this country without really raising temperatures, without dividing our people, because I come from a constituency, a county, where it is really cosmopolitan. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the nominee that we are discussing today, he's known not to be antagonistic. He's not antagonistic, Mr. Speaker. He's a calm, disciplined officer whom, even if he interacts with other officers in all ranks, they will tell you that he has a listening ear, which is really one of the attributes of a leader, and it's also essential for a person who is going to take over as the next Inspector General of Police. Mr. Speaker, I would like to encourage other members that for the first time, we have seen all of us coming up unanimously, the same way we came up, discussed the professionalism of the Attorney General, where we are agreeing that it's not where you come from, but being a Kenyan and merit is supposed to be the first thing that we consider. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Mburi?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support this committee's report. And I note that this position requires a very sober individual who's qualified, experienced, and understands the rule of law. and democracy. In fact, one of the things I think they need to understand is the independence and interdependence of the three arms of government. The legislature, which makes the laws, the judiciary, which interprets the law, and then the executive, which enforces the laws through the police. Mr. Speaker, as this new Inspector General takes up office, I want to advise that he make sure that he respects the rule of law, respect the judiciary, make sure that if there are any court summons, you respect them. Because if in that office you don't respect the courts, then Kenyans may also start disrespecting the courts. And when that happens, that becomes anarchy. The second issue, Mr. Speaker, is that the new Inspector General must also respect other arms of government. For example, Parliament. We have seen in the past where Inspector Generals arbitrarily withdraw security of members of Parliament. We've seen recently one withdrew the security of a judicial officer, not understanding that the nature of the job that we do requires for us to have that security because it is also sensitive. And finally, make sure that this thing of gangland abductions and killings of Kenyans stops once and for all, because this has been a story we have sung, a song we have sung for a long time. We have had Inspector Generals come and go, and we still continue killing our Kenyans. As we are talking now here, there are still Kenyans that are missing, Mr. Speaker. It is important that when he takes up office, he gets to the bottom of what is happening to those Kenyans that are lost since that time when our youth came out to demonstrate and ask for better governance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bure Aburi.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii. Yangu ni kusupport komiti ambaye iliyotekeleza haya mambo kwa sababu Mr. Kanja ni mtu tunamuelewa sisi wa Kenya. Mr. Kanja ukiangalia wakati alikuwa kwa GSU, yeye mwenyewe ndiye alikuwa anazuia upande wa Meru, Tigania West, Igembe Central, Igembe North wakati wa vita ya ng'ombe. Na yeye ni mtu ambaye ukimpigia simu wakati wowote hata kama na namba yako hanaichukua. Langu ni moja peke yake, ni kusema kwamba katika kitengo wa polisi watu wengi wanahangaika. Ukiingia wasaizi kwa nyumba ya polisi wawili wanasia nyumba moja na ni room moja na wako na familia. Na hiyo eti ya kwamba Kanja tukimweka akiweka ndani wasaizi akiingia pale Kanja ataweza kuinua polisi. Ingine ni hii. Kule kwetu nyumbani ama kwa hawa nyumba unaona hapa hivi. Nyumbani kule kuna muzaa ya kutosha na pombe ya kutosha. Pale polisi wale walioko pale wazaizi wakisika pombe hawapeleki polisi, hawapeleki kotini. Ile inabaki pale police station, wale ambaye amesikwa eti ya kwamba yeye mwenyewe apeleke mahali popote. Ndipo tutasema kwamba Kanja akipata hii ya kwamba atatimisha ile wajibu. Ingine hii. Kanja tutasema kwamba sio mtu wa Mount Kenya. Kanja ni Mkenya. Kanja ni Mjaluo, Kanja ni Mluya, Kanja ni Mkamba, Kanja ni Mmeru. Ya kwamba sio kusema kwamba tukimpa Kanja atakuwa akisema mambo mlima. Hakuna mambo mlima kwa Kanja. Kanja atakuwa ni Mkenya mzalendo ambaye anapenda kila mtu. Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii.
Madenge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to add my voice to the support of Douglas Kaja's appointment as the Inspector General of Police. Douglas Kaja comes as a very, very experienced Kenyan in this position. Mr. Speaker, I want to add my voice to the expectations that Kenyans have on the nominee for the position of Inspector General. The number one, President William Ruto, in his wisdom, gave the Inspector General of Police functional autonomy and also financial autonomy. We expect that the welfare of our policemen will be at the forefront of Mr. Kaja's initiatives in reforming the police into a police service. Mr. Speaker, more importantly, is that this House has played its role in ensuring that it is the House that has the final say on the appointment of the nominee, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the claim by certain quarters that they are the people pushing Douglas Kaja's appointment must be put to rest by the House, Mr. Speaker. I wish Mr. Kaja well as he's cleared by, even when he's cleared by this House, but he must know that we have a lot of expectation on him to really meet the desires and the wishes of Kenyans in as far as the police service is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Lagdera. Member for Lagdera, Abdikadir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving the opportunity. I rise to support the nomination of Mr. Kanja to the IG, to be the IG of National Police Service. Mr. Speaker, I have interacted with Mr. Kanja several times on security issues in the constituency, and he has been very responsive. This is a gentleman who will call at 10 p.m. and he will pick your call, and he will listen to you, and he will help you in case of any problems. And if you want to know him, you will look at his wealth declarations. He's a modest man, somebody who has gone through the ranks from police constable to IG, and now what he is declaring, just modest. For any other person, for another Kenyan, I think that person will have been a billionaire now. He declared for 6 million as his wealth. That itself tells you Mr. Kanja is a man of integrity. Therefore, I think the nomination of Mr. Kanja is very important, because for now, I think we'll have somebody with integrity, with experience, with somebody who has gone through ranks of police to at the top, and somebody who understands the challenges of each and every cadre of the police service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Naisula.
Speaker, I also do rise to support the appointment of the nominee, Mr. Kanja, for the position of the Inspector General of Police. And I speak as someone who has worked closely with him when he was in charge of GSU, Mr. Speaker, and he's the one who introduced the National Police Reservists in the North Rift, Mr. Speaker. I remember when we had issues in Samburu West constituency, Mr. Speaker, he got out of the office. We went round with him to the field. He saw the challenges that we were going through, Mr. Speaker, and he's the one who then recruited and ensured that NPRs were brought into place, Mr. Speaker. We need an Inspector General, Mr. Speaker, who will get out of those air-conditioned offices and go to the ground and go and see what is going on. And I can attest that Mr. Kanja is one such gentleman who listens to issues raised by members of parliament from experience, and I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to deliver. And we need to ensure that we pass him very quickly so that the acting IG can be relieved of his services, because we're not very happy with what he's doing in the country, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Member for Tetu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. First of all, is to thank the committee for a job well done, the joint sitting of the Committee of Parliament, of the National Assembly and the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support the appointment of Douglas Kanja as the Inspector General of Police, and to say that Mr. Kanja is a seasoned professional who has grown through the ranks. So we expect him to be accepted very well within the police force, unless, unlike in the past, where we may have appointed outsiders to that position. Mr. Kanja, I know him very well, and he's a man with very good temperament, and who will become a very good unifying factor, within the police force or within the police service. Mr. Speaker, the job of the IG is a tough job, and I hope that he can be able to see through the police reforms that we have been talking about for a very long time. We have a lot of work in fighting corruption within the police force, improving the welfare of officers, ensuring a fair promotion policy, stopping any extrajudicial actions by police officers. It's a tough job, Mr. Speaker, and we wish him well, and he has our full support if approved by this House. Thank you.
Karole Omondi, are you keyed in for this? If you spoke in the morning, then get yourself off the radar. Yes, get yourself off the radar. Honorable Sane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I want to join my colleagues in giving compliments and support to the nominee for IG. The IG has come through the ranks out of merit. He has all the aptitude, the skills, and the qualifications so required for the duty he is supposed to take over. He is a very humble officer, one who has good listenership. The few moments I've had with him were quite interesting. He was able to listen to me and take me through what should be done. He has helped me in several occasions, having come from an insecurity-prone area. The IG is one person who has outstandingly performed in the last days of the Gen Z demonstrations. So I would, in a nutshell, accept in the approval of the IG, Mr. Douglas, for this job. I'm sure he will be one of the best IGs to hold that office. I so support. Thank you.
Hillary.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join all the members who have spoken before me to support the report, the joint report of the Senate and the National Assembly under the able leadership of our chair, the Honorable Gabriel Tongoyo. Mr. Speaker, a lot has been said about Mr. Douglas Kanja, and everything that has been attested by members is true. But Mr. Speaker, while we praise and demand of Kanja to do reforms in the police service, to take care of his juniors, Mr. Speaker, it is the honors of this House to make sure that we also avail resources to enable his office to achieve with a budget of over 115 billion and 85% of that budget going to personnel and emoluments, Mr. Speaker, and leaving 15% only for operations, the police will not achieve any meaningful thing, Mr. Speaker. And I'm calling on this House, when the new IG brings requests to improve performance in the National Police Service, let us generously add resources to him so that as we demand services, we also facilitate services by allocating resources, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Martin Owino.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the committee led by Togoyo. Mr. Speaker, it appears the gentleman is a man of integrity, according to the report, and the eyes of the committee, and we support that. There are only two things, Mr. Speaker, that I would like the gentleman to look into when he takes the office. Number one, the idea of restoring the image of the police service so that they can gain trust from the public and allow people to present information so that crime can be detected early and managed. That is missing because of the acrimony between the police and the people right now. Second, the issue of orders from above. Release the police to do what they have been trained, not what they are told to do. Mr. Speaker, we realized this when we were on the streets, when somebody just say, what are you doing with those MPs? Tear gas them. Very wrong. Lastly, the issue of transferring police force to police service is just a statement. We would like this gentleman to transfer this from that status to community policing service. If that is done, people will restore the confidence which they have lost in the police force, so to say. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mutunga.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to also add my voice to this. Honourable Speaker, I commend the committee for a good job done in the inquiry and proposals they have made. So I urge this House to consider approving the appointment of Mr. Kanja as the IG of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Kanja has what it takes. He has long-standing experience. He has requisite education that is needed. He has the professional capacity to do the work. He is also marked levels of maturity. We need a mature person in the police force, and he is a man of God. Honorable Speaker, I attended Mr. Kanja's...
Honorable Angela, what's your point of order? Mutunga, take your seat. Give him the mic.
Mr. Speaker, I want to bring attention of the chair to page 21.
Which chair?
The speaker, sorry, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry. On page 21, number 45, about the nominee's background. I'm seeing, Mr. Speaker,
Angela, what is our
nominee, sorry?
Are you debating or you have a point
I'm
of
not
order?
debating, I'm bringing to your attention to make a ruling, Mr. Speaker, whether we are properly debating the right person to be appointed as IG. Because this person was born on 22nd September 1963. And 1963, this is 2024 September, he's already 61. All government officers retire at the age of 60. So are we going to appoint somebody who is not even in the system, who has already retired? Is it in order for the House to debate something that is out, somebody who has already retired?
Mutunga, go on.
Honorable Speaker, Mr. Kanja is being appointed on contraction basis, and I think the member is out of order. Honorable Speaker, I need to draw caution, Honorable Speaker, that this... Honorable Speaker, that is my opinion, and I'm entitled to an opinion. Honorable Speaker, I believe I'm on the floor, and I'm entitled to an opinion. I have not ruled, I've said my opinion.
Honorable Angela, take your seat. You've made your point. Take your seat.
Honorable Speaker, I would like to just draw caution to Mr. Kanja. Honorable Speaker, Kenyan police is not one of the most respected. I know, Honorable Speaker, all of us have traveled in this house. And whenever you go to an airport and you're not sure of what to do or where to go, the first people you respect and expect to give you genuine guidance are the police. And that is why we're asking Mr. Kanja to bring the Kenyan police to that particular level of respect. Honorable Speaker, I would also ask that we refrain from aligning our police force. Honorable Speaker, our policemen are also Kenyans and workers in this particular country, and we need to support them to do their job. Honorable Speaker, I would also like Honorable Kanja to train the police to be credible in whatever they do so that they can be respected people. I would like to, Honorable Speaker, to appeal to this House to consider Honorable Kanja for the appointment. I thank you.
Honorable Angela. Honorable Angela, intellectual honesty requires that when you quote something, you quote it fully, not selectively. If you read that whole paragraph, you'll have found that the answer you are looking for lies there. And it doesn't require the ruling of the Speaker. The committee says, the committee noted that at the time of the hearing, the nominee was 61 years old. Article 245 of the Constitution does not prescribe an age limit for the Inspector General. Further, Section 76 of the National Police Service Act, Cap 84, excludes the Inspector General from the retirement age of 60 years. So if you read that paragraph in full, you could have had the answer that you are looking for. So that is called intellectual inexactitude. I'll give to McClap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the problem of my good brother is Wanjala is not always available on time because this matter was debated in the morning and concluded.
Don't debate Wanjala, debate the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Number one is that the committee chaired by Honorable Tongoyo did a very good job in a very systematic and summarized manner for everyone to be able to debate on this matter. So I want to congratulate the committee for doing a good job. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, you know I come from a region, the North Rift, where banditry has been a problem. When I came to Parliament, Mr. Speaker, I asked whom do I go and see in the police force, in the police service, who can assist my people. Mr. Speaker, I was told of one Douglas Kanja. And when reaching his office, Mr. Speaker, I got a first-class treatment that I have never been given a treatment like that by police. The treatment was, this gentleman walked out to his office to come and meet me and took me inside. That is a very humble police person in the country, Mr. Speaker. Number two, the fact that President Kibaki saw an opportunity, equality in him. He gave him OGW. When Uhuru Kenyatta gave him another presidential honor, and William Ruto gave another presidential honor. So, Speaker, that tells you this is a man that the country can rely on security matters. Mr. Speaker, as I end, what awaits Kanja is digitization of the police services in the country so that to reduce the issues of corruption. Two, protect the NBRs in the country so that they are protected just like the other police. Three, let him go in record as the IG in Kenya.
As Tongoyo, you can now reply. The time I allocated is over. Yes, Wanjala, what is it again? You look restless.
Please, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, recently this country was going almost to a revolution. And one of the issues Gen Zs said, they don't want people holding those offices, government, civil servant offices, who are above 60 years.
Order, Angela. This House operates on the basis of the Constitution. Order. Honorable Angela, you're out of order. Tongoyo.
Give me the mic. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And before I reply, I have got only about one or two things to add. Honorable Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to really sincerely thank all members of this House from both sides of the House for debating this motion with objectivity and for the overwhelming support that actually they have given to this motion. Honorable Speaker, it is important to note that from almost 30 plus members of this House who have contributed to this motion, all of them, they had given their own personal testimonies of the person, Mr. Kanja, of a person who is always ready to listen, a person who is a team player, a person, of course, who is committed to the service, and with no doubt, Mr. Douglas Kanja is a man that we can trust to bring the needed reform in the police service. Mr. Speaker, actually that should be also a rallying, a call to all of us as leaders, that when we give an opportunity to serve, we should always do it diligently with a lot of zeal. So when a time comes for scrutiny, there will be too much good to be said about us and the accolades to be said of what we have done during our time of serving the country. Mr. Speaker, two critical things that came up. One, you have actually managed to address, I don't want to say it, on the issue of the age. Of course, it was raised earlier by our very senior member there, and of course by Wanjala. I don't want to repeat it, you have said it very well. Mr. Speaker, there is the issue, of course, which was raised by Otende on the issue of temporary absence of the Inspector General. And the Section 16, Cap 80 is also very clear that the President, on recommendation of the Commission, may appoint one of the Deputy Inspector General to act as the Inspector General for the period not exceeding 3 months. So I think that confirmed that the position of the acting IG is in order. With this, Mr. Speaker, I want to call this House to approve the appointment of one Mr. Kancha for this position, and I reply, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much.
Order, honorable members. Order, Kagusha. Take your seat. Honorable members, I now put the question, which is that taking into consideration the findings of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs and the Senate Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations, in its report on the vetting of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho for approval as the Inspector General of the National Police Service, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 17th September 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 245(2)(a) of the Constitution and Section 12(1) of the National Police Service Act, Cap 84, and Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, Cap 7F, this House approves the appointment of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? No. The ayes have it. Honorable members, we'll go back to order number 7, where today we have the Minister for Education in the House, Mr. Ogamba. So CS, it's now your opportunity to respond to issues that you must be fully familiar with. This House held a Kamkunji on Tuesday, 20th August 2024, and matters that arose from there required and necessitated the House to invite you to come and speak to the issues as listed out on the order paper which you are familiar with. I now give you the opportunity. Thereafter, members will have an opportunity to ask you questions, both on the statement you are going to give and any other matters within your jurisdiction in the Ministry of Education. You may take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, honorable members. Mr. Speaker, may I take this opportunity before I start to introduce the team that I'm accompanied with for purposes of record. I'm accompanied by the PS DVET in the Ministry of Education, Dr. Esther Moria, the PS Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, the PS Higher Education, Madam Beatrice Inyangala. I'm also accompanied by Professor Daniel Mugendi, the chair of all VCs, the vice chancellors of the universities in Kenya, public universities, and the CEO of the University Fund, Geoffrey Monari, together with my technical advisor, Joshua Wabwire. Mr. Speaker, may I take this opportunity to first and foremost thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in this August House, specifically about the student-centered funding model, which is new in this country, and any other issues that relate to that model and in the education sector. Mr. Speaker, I also thank you for the Kamkunji you hosted on the 20th of August 2024 together with other honorable members, that arose out of the concerns surrounding the new funding model. Mr. Speaker, we benefited from you and from the members' concerns and perspectives, and we have since taken action towards the proper rolling out of the model in a seamless and sensitive to the stakeholders' concerns. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for favoring us with a copy of the answer which indicated or stipulated the issues that were of concern. Mr. Speaker, I wish to indicate that a day after the Kamkunji on the 21st of August 2024, we did implement your directive and requested all the vice chancellors in the country, in the public universities, to admit all the university students who had applied and admitted to those universities without paying their household contribution, as we sorted out the issues that were surrounding the funding model. Mr. Speaker, a total of 124,364 students out of the 538 students that were placed have since reported to their respective universities. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to note that the number of students who have since paid their household contribution out of the 124 plus students are 75,000, which is almost above 60%. Mr. Speaker, the first question that we need to address, or we are requested to respond to, relates to us expounding on the application of the funding model for public universities and TVETs, including the criteria for ensuring that the analysis and categorization of beneficiaries into the 5 bands does not disadvantage the very needy students that it is supposed to support. Mr. Speaker, and as honorable members are aware, the student-centered funding model was launched by His Excellency, the President, in May 2023. It was first applied in the 2023-2024 academic year, and it is now in its second year of implementation. Mr. Speaker, the model was introduced on the recommendation of the Presidential Working Party on education reform that was set up and that concluded its report last year. The model is designed, Mr. Speaker, to provide funding to students based on their level of need. This was targeted at achieving equity and inclusivity to enhance access to higher education, regardless of one's socioeconomic background. Mr. Speaker, once a student is placed to a university by the Kenya University Central Placement Service, they lodge an application for funding through the Higher Education Portal. Students placed in public universities can apply for both scholarships and loans, and students placed on private universities are eligible only for loans. The student-centered model, Mr. Speaker, has 5 bands, and these are set out based on the household income groups and the level of need. The household income groups represent broad household weighted income brackets that are as follows. Band number 1 is the group whose household income is below 5,995 shillings per month. Band number 2 falls on households whose income per month is between 5,995 and 70,000 shillings. Band number 3, 23,000, the second band 2 is between 5,995 to 23,670. Band 3 is from 23,671 to 70,000. Band 4, 70,001 to 119,999. And band 5, households whose income is above 120,000. Mr. Speaker, based on the 5 bands, there is also affirmative action that is considered during the banding. Now, under table number 1 that I have here and to which I forwarded a letter to you, scholarship university bands on table number 1, band 1, the amount of scholarship is 70%, the loan is 25%, and the household contribution is 5%. So I'll just, so that I save time, I'll just read the household contribution for band number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Band number 1 contributes 5%, band number 2 contributes 10%, band number 3 contributes 20%, band number 4 contributes 30%, and band number 5 contributes 40%. The rest is contributed by the government. On the scholarships, band number 1 gets 70%, band number 2 gets 60% for TVETs, band number 3 gets 50%, band number 4 gets 40%, and band number 5 gets 50%. To determine, Mr. Speaker, the student's level of need, in order to give the categorization, there was use of a product called the means testing instrument. Now, the means testing instrument was designed to utilize data provided by students to determine their level of need. The data was then validated through other government agencies and systems. The application system is integrated in other government databases that include the Universities and College Central Placement Service, the Integrated Population Registration System, the National Education Management Information System, NEMIS, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the Higher Education Loans Board, the Registrar of Births and Deaths, the National Social Protection Scheme, National Council of Persons with Disabilities, and the Kenya Revenue Authority. This integration helped to validate the information provided by various students in order to ensure that they are banded in the right band. This targeted approach, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, ensures that students who face the most significant financial challenges receive the greatest support to complete their education. Madam Speaker, since the rollout of the student-centered funding model, there have been improvements carried out to ensure that it accurately determines the student's level of need and that no needy student is disadvantaged. The improvements have been formed by engagement with stakeholders, including honorable members of parliament through that Kamkunji. On account of these engagements, for example, Madam Speaker, the means testing instrument has been enhanced to capture broader socioeconomic factors and therefore improve the accuracy of the categorization. These extra additional socioeconomic factors include the number of children in primary and secondary school in a household. They also include the parents' highest educational level. It also includes the agricultural priority programs, and I'll come to explain that a little bit later. It includes areas where, for example, parents are known. So the categorization has been expanded in order to ensure that as we categorize the students into bands, the outcome places them as close as possible to their realities. These improvements, Mr. Speaker, have seen a change in categorization across the various bands, even as students also have been sensitized to provide more accurate information that are detailed. A comparison of their categorization between the year 2023, 2024, and the 2024-2025 has actually confirmed from the figures that the Band 1, Band 2, and Band 3 have more students this year than they had the last year. And Band 5 and Band 4 and 5 have lesser students than they had last year. So it has tilted because of the improvement of the categorization. The other mechanisms that have also been placed in place ensure that the very needy students are not disadvantaged is the appeals mechanism. We came up with an appeals mechanism that allows students to get into the appeals portal, and if their circumstances have changed, they would put in the new information and they would then be recategorized. This is because we acknowledge that financial circumstances of students and parents do change, and therefore, once they change, the student banding also changes. For example, if a parent has lost a job, the student would go into the portal and indicate that although my father or mother was working last year, they are not working this year and I do not have the income we had last year, so it has shifted and therefore their circumstances have changed. We have also noted and acknowledged that internet access and connectivity has various disadvantages to various students, and students who come from poor backgrounds may not have access to the internet. To cure this, we have set up desks in each and every university from the university funding team so that the students can be assisted to put in their data in the universities where they've been admitted to, so that they are not disadvantaged. Mr. Speaker, the second question requires us to set measures that were put in place to simplify the model and enlighten the general public about it. As you rightly noted during the Kamkunji, the public was not well informed about the student-centered funding model, and we agreed with you that we need to put more energy in communication to the public. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, we've taken a number of measures, and firstly, we've noted the salient concern that has been raised by stakeholders, especially the students themselves, on their involvement in decision-making around the funding model. In this regard, His Excellency the President has constituted the National Working Committee on Review of the new University Education Funding Model to refine the funding model in order to optimize its functioning. The Gazette notice has been released and it is attached, and this is part of the broader effort to ensure that stakeholders understand the model and they contribute to enhancing it. The other measures that we've taken, Mr. Speaker, include public sensitization. We've rolled out a number of public sensitization campaigns across the country through the radio, the print media, public forums, etc., etc. We have also gone into digital resource for easy access, where, as a ministry, we have invested in digital resources to simplify access through the funding model that is in the portal. We have also done stakeholder engagement and collaboration. We've rolled out YouTube demonstrations and social media campaigns where demonstrations are given step by step on how to apply for scholarships and to apply for loans under this funding model. We've also done social media campaigns through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, including short video clips showing answers to the frequently asked questions. Mr. Speaker, we have also included simplification application process through automation, where we've stipulated the various steps on how an applicant can check their eligibility and submit their documents online. We have also created, Mr. Speaker, helplines where we have continuous feedback so that we can respond to them. They are on 24/7 basis so that we can be able to respond to the challenges or the questions and concerns that the students have. We have done regional outreach, both on sites and off sites, through Oduma centers and other support systems. We've done timely updates and transparent disbursements of the amounts that are due to the students. And Mr. Speaker, we will continue to engage the public and continue discussing with them and informing them how this model works so that the public are informed. Mr. Speaker, the third question requires us to provide the approximate cost of education of an individual from the basic education level to the tertiary level. Mr. Speaker, the cost of an individual student from basic to tertiary levels depends on a number of variables, such as whether the learner has special needs, the type of schools attended, whether it's a day school or a boarding school, the gender, and the type of tertiary education received. That's whether it is through TVET or university. The current rates, Mr. Speaker, for capitation are as follows. For primary, we have 1,420 per learner per year. For secondary, that is junior school, we have 15,042 per learner per year, and for secondary, we have 22,244 per learner per year. Mr. Speaker, these rates were considered by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms, and they recommended that the rates be revised to reflect the actual costs of education. Therefore, the figures provided above are the ones, the figures that I'm going to read below are the ones that were recommended by the Working Party. For pre-primary, it was recommended that the figure be enhanced to 5,384 per year for lunch and 1,170 per year for tuition. That brings the cost per year to about 18,828 for PP1 and PP2. But if the learner has special needs, the figure increases to 19,636. For primary school, the figure that has been recommended is 2,238 per year for tuition and 5,384 for lunch. The total cost, therefore, per learner in a regular day primary school for 6 years is 45,732. In boarding schools, the cost increases because of the cost of dinner, that is 5,594, resulting in 79,296 shillings per year. If the learner has special needs, this figure increases, and the total is 101.40 shillings for the entire primary school period. For junior school, the annual cost of tuition in regular school is estimated at 15,043 per learner. The cost for lunch is 5,384. This totals 61,281 for the 3 years in a regular day junior school. If the learner has special needs, you add 10,000, it goes up by 10,000, and therefore goes to 91,281 per year. In secondary schools, there is a table that I have, and Mr. Speaker, allow me to just indicate that we have a different figure for female students and male students because the female students in the kit that they get is slightly higher than the male students. So for female students in National Extra County School, the figure is 481,915 for the 4 years. But if you have special needs, the figure is 621,915. For males, the figure works out to 472,232. But if you have special need, it becomes 612,232. If you're in boarding school for females, the figure is 429,839. But if you have special needs, it is 569,839. And male in boarding schools, the figure is 420,156. And if you have special needs, it is 560,156. At this point, Mr. Speaker, let me note that 70% of our students are in day schools, with boarding secondary schools accounting for only 30% of the student population. For learners with special needs, Mr. Speaker, the capitation is enhanced by 35,000 per learner per year, with a total capitation of 230,108 per learner over the 4 years. For learners in day secondary schools, the approximate cost per learner per year is 22,527 for tuition, 11,000 for lunch, and this totals to 134,108. The 11,000 for lunch in these schools, however, is a special arrangement between the schools and the parents, and it's not a capitation. For tertiary education, Mr. Speaker, the average cost of education and training in technical and vocational education and training institutions is 125,789 per annum, comprising tuition of 67,189 and assessment of 15,000, upkeep of 18,600, and administration costs of 25,000. In universities, the annual programs cost range from 122,400 for arts programs to 612,000 per year for programs in medicine. The average upkeep costs per year for students in the university is 60,000 per student. Mr. Speaker, the figures for secondary school that we have indicated are between the fees for day secondary schools, to the lowest, that's the lowest figure, and national extra secondary schools have the highest figures. So, Mr. Speaker, the figures for universities and TVET are inclusive of upkeep and subsistence costs. The most expensive program is Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery, actually Bachelor of Medicine and Dental Surgery, which is 612,000. And the least expensive program is Bachelor of Arts at 122,400. Mr. Speaker, the fourth question requires us to state the amounts that goes towards education bursaries and scholarships every year. I wish to clarify, Mr. Speaker, that the government is required to provide capitation to public basic education institutions every year at the approved rate of 1,420 per learner per year in primary schools, 15,042 per learner per year in junior school, and 22,244 per learner per year in secondary school. The total provision depends on the enrollment, and the requirements that have been provided has a deficit over the last 3 financial years, and I have a table there to show, for instance, in the financial year 2022 to 2023, the requirement was 11,815 million. But what was budgeted was 11,800. Thank you for that. What I can say is that, in fact, when these issues arose, we decided to use the chiefs and the village elders that we have in the country and Angao to also check whether the information that we have is correct relating to the number of students.
members.
Yes.
What's your point of order, Naisula?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having listened to my colleagues and also on a different matter, not the verification, Mr. Speaker, having listened to the CS, it is clear we're still on a free mode because the students have just been allowed to school. As the ministry continues to sort out these issues, Mr. Speaker, at what point can we get a definite answer as this House that this model is working? Because I've just thought about it when they say that because of the Kamkunji that you called, we implemented your directive and instructed that all public universities will admit students irrespective of their ability, So we are on a free mode as we speak. By the time the schools close and we come again next semester, will we find ourselves in the same position, Mr. Speaker? Buenos dias.
Go on, Waziri, and answer.
Yes.
We'll still give everybody an opportunity, so just hold your horses.
Thank you. I was still on Dr. Nikal's position about the verification. The variables, Dr. Nikal, that were used, Mr. Speaker, included family structures, the schools attended. This information ties with what Honorable Bayer was talking about. In fact, the schools attended was part of the variable that was used to determine whether a child is able to pay or not to pay in order for them to be banded in a certain band. What was perhaps not clear is whether you are in a school under sponsorship or personal payment. So this is now the information that is being expanded to find out if you are banded in the wrong band because you are sponsored and it looked from the MTI that you have self-capacity, it's then correct. This is what we are doing with the appeals where you are giving now more information to say, although I was in an academy under sponsorship, so that it is corrected. We are not saying that we do not acknowledge that there is a problem. We acknowledge that there is a problem, and what we are trying to do is solve that problem. But while we are solving that problem, the children cannot stay home. We said, come to school, stay in school as we clear this issue. The definite answer that I can give to Honorable Lesuda that we need to be able to clear this is within the next 3 months so that when this January comes, we do not have this problem again. That is the basis upon which the committee has 8 weeks to resolve the issues that surround it.
Cynthia Muge's question, 2 children,
Cynthia,
same father, same mother.
Children, same mother.
Different bands.
Different bands. And this again may be a problem of how the data was entered. So what we would suggest is if you give us the details of those children, we can find out, did they enter the same data? Because if you go in and put in information that is different from your sister or from your brother, it will take you to different places depending on what information you put in. So I can't really stand here and give you an actual reason why they were given different bands unless I have more information on that particular case.
Yes, Bayer?
The question on private universities where they do not get scholarship, I think this is a legal and policy issue that has been discussed here many times, and I think it is something that perhaps all of us as a country we need to discuss to make that decision. It is not a ministerial policy decision, it's a government decision.
Private university. He doesn't want to go to private university. He's applied to go to a university in Kenya. COPS places this student in a private university, and he has not requested. Then when he gets the form to go to that private university, he's told he can't go to scholarship. I think the PS really helped me with these students, and I want to acknowledge and thank her, because I said transfer those students back to public university. But there are other kids who felt, I want to do medicine. I've been placed in a private university because because there was too many applicants in the public universities. Now these students are there, they're suffering. They have said, minister said, let them go. Some of them chose to go. What will happen to these students? I have made specific requests to the minister. Kindly transfer the students from Kilifi North back into public university in courses that are equally as weighty as those courses. And that is how you will save a whole generation of bright young people who have been put in private universities where they can never afford because they still have balances even in high school.
Yes, Minister.
Yes, I'm informed, and this one, I don't have all the information as you speak, and you give me more time to go and find out how to deal with it, is that when students are placed in courses or they have made a choice in certain universities and they are not able to go there because of their marks, then the system places them into a different university, which might end up being a public university, but it's something that we'll do something about. As you correctly say, the PS has been able to help. So we are alive to that. We'll be able to sort it out.
Kajwang's.
The question that my friend Kajwang raises is correct, that we are going to, once this information is collected, it will be reduced into a document that then would be brought here as a sectional paper or as a draft, then we include it as regulations or gazettement. So it is a process that we've started to ensure that we have this grounded in law once it is completed, so that it has the force of law.
Moreo's question.
Morio's issue was that we need to go back. What is good, you should not go ahead and change it. But when we were in school, at that time, we were quite very few. And we were having, yes. So what has happened is that as the students increased, the government then was not able to do the capitation. And I said it that although the government was supposed to give 80% of the capitation, the highest they ever gave was 66%. This year they have given 38%, meaning there is a hole, there is a big shortfall that required to be filled. And that is the reason why it became necessary for this particular model to be thought of so that money can follow the student. However, we have to improve it, and that is what we are doing by working with all these teams to ensure that we have a model that passes the test of time.
Let's take the next round. Mugabe.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. I've been following the conversation, rather the debate, and there's one component that has been either ignored, but you're not focusing on it. The issue is the CS comfortable with the new fee structures for universities? Because that's a very critical component, that the fees of universities were raised in very enormous numbers, from what people used to pay around 16,000 in a year to 600,000 in some courses. So that is the first issue. Are they comfortable with that? And the people who are made, rather were in that particular task force to look at the issue of fees. Who are these people? And you'd find most of them were actually professors and vice chancellors of universities who wanted to get more money. So we must start to address the issue from the issue of school fees. Are we comfortable with that? Number two, on the same issue of school fees, if a student gets good grades and they are called to do medicine, then the percentage that they're supposed to contribute is high. So we are basically punishing those students who have done well. And you'll find that even some students may opt to do other, maybe not so marketable courses that require lower grades because of the issues of the fees of the courses that they qualify for. That is another component that we need to look at.
Thank you, Sirat.
And if you'd allow me, Speaker.
There are so many interests, Mugabe. That's enough. Sirat, please try and ask one clarification, one question. Give him the mic. It's one next to you. Or is it ahead of you? Give him the mic.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think they have a problem with me. I don't know. Anyway, the ministry is trying to tell us that they have taken data which is not accurate. Having said that, we have seen there is an interest component, which is, I mean, we have different students that practice different faith in this country. I don't know how a Muslim student can apply using the conventional loan. Why haven't you, why haven't you discussed it with other stakeholders to get Sharia compliance for this student to get this loan? Thank you very much.
Bensouda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. First, I would like to ask the CS to confirm whether feasibility study was done for the MTI, pre-testing of the instrument, and who were the target population for this, and what was informational on that. Because I heard the CS mention about chiefs were asked to do responses, and to me, that was not adequate target population. And a cost-benefit analysis. Mr. Speaker, as I stand to ask the same question, components on that, we mentioned, the CS mentioned about ensuring that the TVETs and the higher education also they get the funding. At home, I was just away from home 2 days ago. There are students who are in the villages. There are students who are supposed to go to the TTIs. They cannot access. When the VCs are called to be told and given addresses that no student should not be allowed to report to school, we are talking of theories in parliament. At home, the students are at home. And also when I'm talking about cost-benefit analysis, I am asking in regard to yesterday we saw the multimedia students, they were out, there is no electricity, there is no water, and many other things. So cost-benefit analysis before we talk about amalgamating all the bursaries, which the CS has pronounced that this requires time of about 3 months or something. Why do we waste Kenyans' money in forming committees to check on what we propose that fails this country? Competency-based curriculum has not gained even up to 50%. I'm a primary school teacher. Right now, the bursaries we are talking to propose to amalgamate will not work. Education should be free for all. Vision 2030. All Kenyans at primary level must access education. That is opposite of what is taking place in Kenya. What is our transition level, retention? Mr. Speaker, would you give me a minute kindly?
You are making a speech. Yes, Ruku.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Why is it that the ministry cannot go to the old financing model as we get it right to this new financing model, Mr. Speaker? We have, the minister said we have 14,000 students who have not reported. Is it possible to get the list of the 14,000 students who have not reported and where they come from, so that we, the members of parliament, can make follow-up with those students? Because 14,000, Mr. Speaker, is a very huge number. It's almost, if we compare, and all these are likely to come from marginalized constituencies like Mbeere North. So it is extremely important to get...
There's no evidence to that effect.
It is true, but Mr. Speaker, you know, we have many marginalized constituencies. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, is we are facing a problem at the University of Nairobi, where the former Vice Chancellor, Professor Kiama, was thrown out of the office through a coup. And we are witnessing a downfall of management of the university. What is the minister doing? What's the minister doing on the issues of University of Nairobi? And also we have
enough. Women Rep Busia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to ask the CS if Section 27 in the Constitution Article 27, Section 4 was really observed. It is, this model is very discriminative, and you can never tell if a student who's applying for fees knows the whereabouts of their parents. A student might be feeling that there are only two in their home because he knows daddy and mommy were married and they are legitimately together, not knowing that daddy has another wife that they do not know, and the other wife has another child. That child is also feeling that he is alone in their home. These children, if you put them together, they belong to one man, they might be 6. So this one saying that he's the only one at home is denied fees because daddy has a good salary. It leads to these children not going to school because daddy will be overwhelmed, suffocated, eventually just give up because of this model. So it's very discriminative. Let us give these children, all of them, equal opportunities to go to school. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Madenge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this means testing instrument seems to have assumed that these young people only began to exist in this country upon the release of the results of KCSE. Yet the ministry has a system referred to as NEMIS. If the ministry used that system, you would not need to apply, expanded the scope of the system, captured more data about the students' history, performance, right from when they are in the system. By the time they are sitting for the exams, you would not need this means testing instrument. So I'm advising an expansion of the scope of capturing data using NEMIS. The second thing is the anxiety that you're causing in the institutions today. Waiting for 3 months after appeal without knowing what this appeal is going to be like and whether there is any recourse. Should my appeal fail, where do I go? Do I stop? Does my education come to an end, or what do I do? Lastly, Mr. Speaker, on safety in our schools because of the fires, and we are affected in Nyeri, the ministry has totally failed in implementing its own regulations in terms of safety and occupational health of our students. And Mr. Speaker, the Education Committee should demand that the ministry files with Parliament the reports of the quality assessments in our schools in every quarter. And that is also shared with parents so that our children are not exposed to certain dangers in our institution.
Last on that, Carol Omondi. Then the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
We'll do another round after that until you get satisfied.
Thank you very much. I'll try and be very brief, Honorable Speaker. We've looked at this matter, I think, several times, and I think the issue is just about accessibility and affordability of education. But that, having said that, let me make a proposal that I think for this university funding model to work, the applications, as I said last time, should be made while the students are still in high school, before they even sit for the exams, because that is where all the information about their financial records, how they've been paying fees, and then they have teachers, counselors to guide them, and also internet connectivity. I think the application for the loans should be made before the students leave school. Secondly, the determination as to what somebody should get as a scholarship, a loan, or aid is a financial question. But if you look at the MTI instrument to determine the household income, the parameters are sociocultural. How do you answer a financial question using sociocultural parameters? As I said last time, let us use financial tools to determine the financial income or needs of every student. And those, the range of information is available, it is out there. You've mentioned tax records. There are also M-Pesa records of the guardians. There are also employment records. There are also other government systems like social protection. There are a range of financial tools that we can use to make that determination. And then I would like to suggest that we also include in this funding model medical insurance for the students. It's not covered in any of the tools. And finally, this may be a little radical, but I think it is time as members of parliament, we looked for ways and means of dedicating more resources to improving university facilities. And one of them is to cut political party funding and dedicate those resources to university education. Thank you very much.
Yes, CS, that's his opinion. Pardon? Yes, Shimba?
I had actually requested the ministry to inform this House what his ministry is doing to ensure that there is equitable distribution of the finances that they hold. We know you have finances, but how are you distributing those funds?
Point
what mechanism? Yeah.
You had worked out.
Thank you. Thank you. On your question on distribution of finances, the capitation is based on the enrollment of the students, so that if from your area X number of students come, it's that X number times the amount. That is how it's done. It's not possible to go to
just
holds, which it distributes to MPs. But which method do they use to ensure that every constituency gets a fair share of that money?
Understood.
I can proceed. On the question that Honorable Mugabe asked whether we are comfortable with the fee structure and that the fees was raised, part of what the committee is going to look at is the cost of the programs in various schools, and it is part of the TORs that we are putting there, because what was happening before, the programs were rated the same, but you'll agree with us that, for example, if you are doing arts and somebody else is doing a program that requires equipment, the cost is not the same for practicals and theory. So that is going to be looked at and rationalized so that the fee is properly proportionate to the cost and that it's not extraneous or that it's not that high. So that is going to be, it's part of what the committee is going to do. Sirat, your comments are well taken. It is true on the different faiths and the program that is being developed, the MTI that is being developed vis-a-vis the loans, we are working towards coming up with a model or with a particular model that deals with Sharia law, Sharia compliant, so that we are not forcing people to go to a different level. It is being done. That particular suggestion is very, very welcome, and thank you for it. Bensouda, on whether the visibility was done and the cost-benefit analysis was done, yes, it was done, and that is why for the last 2 years, when this model has worked, the universities have been able to slightly meet their requirements. And what happened, unfortunately, in multimedia, I was informed this morning that it was a particular pipe that burst and there was no water to the hostels, but that has since been rectified. And there is a meeting tomorrow with the students and we'll have a report at the end of the day. So that is being done. The cost-benefit analysis was done. But to be clear, I have not said we are going to amalgamate. Please don't get me wrong. The ministry has not said that it's going to amalgamate any of the bursaries because we are not there yet. It is a conversation that is being had and you are having it, other people are having it. Once it becomes law in the future, then we will be able to apply it as necessary. The old funding model by Rogo saying that perhaps these 14,000 students, we need their details. That's a good suggestion, and we are going to get the details from COOPS and share with you, so that if somebody comes from your constituency, you're able to determine and find out the reason why they've not gone to school. That's a very good suggestion, and thank you very, very, very much. On the issue of Professor Kiama, that is an active issue that is ongoing with the council and the university. We are dealing with it, and once it is concluded, we'll be able to give you a report, but it's not yet concluded. It's a governance issue, it's being dealt with. The women rep from Busia, the issue of discrimination, this is where we are saying when data is being placed into the MTI, the information can be collated, and this is what we are trying to find out. Is the data that is being given by the students the correct data, and is there something that can be done? The intention of the funding model is not to discriminate. The intention is to ensure that the students who need the support of the government in doing their courses are able to study. Thank you, Honorable Mathenge, for your suggestions, and it is true that the scope perhaps needs to be expanded to ensure that the gap is not that high, because when you expand the variables, you reduce the error. You are able to bring the results closer to the margin of error. On the issue of 3 months, the students have been advised on what we are doing, that once we do the banding or rebanding, depending on where you are, then we'll deal with that issue at that point and give time, give room for them to continue paying or not paying until the issue is resolved. We are not going to disenfranchise the students by saying, you are in this band, you are now moved to this one, you didn't pay, go back home or something like that. That is what we are working on, because the fund is giving that much more money to the university than before. Remember, the DUC for this year, for example, has given 38%. If you take the 75,000 students who have paid, and then you take the portion of the government that has paid, the funding model has paid that much higher than 38%. So there's that much more resources in the universities, and that's how they are able to keep the students in school. And we are able to work this out to ensure that whatever problem that is there with this particular mechanism is sorted out without affecting the students, because the students were not the cause of the problem. So we are resolving it, and we are alive to it. The suggestion that we should give reports on safety measures to this house quarterly, I think is an excellent suggestion. It's an excellent suggestion so that we can become accountable, that whatever is happening there in our schools, everybody is aware of it. And since you represent various constituencies, if you find it is a school in your constituency that is not meeting those standards, you can also help us through your system to ensure that those schools have what is required to ensure that our children are safe. That's an excellent suggestion, and we have picked it and we'll run with it. Similar with what my friend Karoli Omondi has said, the funding model requires those variables to not only deal with the ones that are socioeconomic, but financial as well. So that mix does give us an indication of where the student or the parents are, and it's an excellent suggestion, and we are taking it with gratitude. On the issue of the political funds going to schools or universities, that's something that is, it's under law. It's a legal issue. If you pass that law, well and good, we'll just be happy to take the money. And the suggestion that we need to include a medical insurance component is something that we look at, and it's an important suggestion. And thank you so much for those brilliant suggestions.
Dorothy? Okay. Give Dorothy the mic. You're giving the wrong location. Move.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I start by saying the success of any progressive nation lies in its education systems. Mr. Speaker, I want to challenge the minister and his team seated here because, Mr. Speaker, if there is a ministry that is well structured, where the minister would be sitting down and at the click of a button, he can be able to access all the information that he likes, is the Ministry of Education. The data that he is purporting not to have, I have been a primary school teacher. The enrollment of the school, every data is put in a system right from day one. I can be able to tell as a teacher the number of students in the school, those in class 1, and so in every part of this country. Mr. Speaker, that is not an excuse that data is not available. If they want to get the best testing tool for this particular funding, they can get this information from our schools, Mr. Speaker. Every teacher knows the child who sleeps hungry. Every teacher can be able to tell you a child who has no father, a child who is a total orphan, a child who has well to do with parents. So the data can be availed in the schools. There is no need of doing a scientific way of getting data for this funding. This is availed in schools. Mr. Speaker, my question goes directly to the TVET, and I want to really thank the PS TVET because she is always available to answer questions when required to do so. Mr. Speaker, up to this time, the TVET institutions, and it's the fourth quarter, they have not gotten any single cent in matter of funding. And the students in those schools can be very raw. Mr. Speaker, if it is not possible, I think there should be a mechanism of ensuring that the principals are allowed to charge some little money even for operations, so that at the end of the day, we don't have a replica of what is happening, what happened yesterday in multimedia. There is no water, no electricity, nothing. Mr. Speaker, what is the ministry doing to ensure that capitation is released in our schools at the earliest opportunity so that our teachers don't suffer?
Sunguli.
Mr. Speaker, with regards to the loans that are given to the students, what is the interest rate that they are supposed to pay back with? And my second comment is actually on the capitalization of the. Now, it is given per student, and I have asked this question before to your predecessor, Mr. CS, and I don't know whether I take it as a concern in my constituency that because you give capitation per student, per capita, what it has done is that there are some very, very industrious, some very, very finance-oriented head teachers who are overstaffing their schools because that's when they can get more money. Is there a policy in the ministry to curb students per class? And is that policy actually being implemented as of now? Because some of our schools are underpopulated while some are overpopulated. And just because the head teacher knows how to get around it and get more money. But I had one
each. Ferdinand, we're coming to an end. So ask one question each.
Yeah, I want to take this opportunity to thank the CS for trying to answer some of these questions. But the most important thing, as I'm a slightly older student of the University of Nairobi, why don't you go back to the old system? Because it looks like, from what I'm seeing and from your presentation, Bwana CS, I think this system is not going to work. Let's go back to the old system because we have enough universities in this country. Plus, of course, we are having also TVET. I want also to say that, of course, my TVET in Kwanzaa has not been completed because you have already convened, but we have enough institutions. Why don't you go back to the old system? Because this one here it looks from my colleagues and from your presentation, the system is not working. Go back.
Thank
because
you.
of now.
Ochanda. Dr.
Thank you, Mr.
Ochanda.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the ministry, the CS, are really struggling to sort out a problem in the country. And that's why exactly we have these banding issues. But as we look at that, they are trying to target the 130,000 plus students. Besides that, there are over 300,000 plus students in year 2 to year 6, some to extreme situations of year 8 and year 9. What is it that the ministry is doing for this group of students, knowing that there's an issue, there's a big problem? What is it that the ministry is doing to sort out the mess that there is in? Or are we to wait for the transition for the next 4 years to sort out their problems?
Q. Is that a member for Kinango? No. At the back? Yes. Is that Gashagwa? There's a lot of reflection I couldn't quite tell.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No, I'm not Rigiji. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, and I rise to ask or to request the CS. Why can't we can't we revert back to the old model, because the variables considered in this banding are quite misleading. Mr. Speaker, when you ask someone the salary of a parent, and you place someone to a certain band, and maybe someone earns 100,000, and the responsibilities are fewer than that person who earns a different amount. Why should we place somebody why should we place a student considering the salary or the income, not considering the responsibility of a parent?
Thank you. Museo Yula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I have an issue regarding the assurance by the ministry on the system. Can the ministry assure this House that the system will not be tampered with? I'm asking that because, Mr. Speaker, I have a case of a disabled student who was placed in Band 1 last year. Come this year, it moved to Band 2. So what happened? Why was the student moved from Band 1 to Band 2, and this is a disabled student? Secondly, the linkage with KRA, Mr. Speaker, is not a correct idea, because many of our parents have no PIN numbers. So I will say a case where a student was put on Band 5, yet the parent is just a shoemaker in the village. So what criteria is being used?
Or a shoemaker?
A shoe repairer.
As a cobbler.
Yeah. So what assurance, what criteria is the ministry or is the system using to place these students in those Band 5, and yet they are very poor from the villages?
Thank you. Murugara. Minister, you will not repeat questions. So where there are repeat questions, you just refer to your earlier answers, but let's give everybody an opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is whether university fees are standardized. That is, are they the same? And if so, the collections made by each university, is the revenue part of the revenue of the university, or it forms the part of the exchequer, in which case there has to be further funding, especially now that we have a huge number of students joining universities, the infrastructure is strained, it's constrained, and students possibly have even to go for lectures, not in lecture halls, but outside through windows and what have you. Exactly how does the ministry plan to ameliorate some of the problems, in infrastructural problems we have with our universities through the funding?
Thank you. Member for, is it Kajiado East? South. Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted just to start by saying the country, we are tired of demonstration. There was demonstration of teachers, now students are almost giving ultimatum. And the issue is under Article 95. This House has been given the mandate by the Kenyan people to see what is right concerning their issues. And Mr. Speaker, if you see, the piloting is wrong, application procedure again is wrong, the parameter of static. For example, if today I'm employed, by next year I'm not employed, it doesn't clearly state. Mr. Speaker, I think the whole thing is wrong. That's my observation. And I need you to give directives. We request that we give directives that the ministry take the Kenya Republic or the Kenyan people serious. My question is the final one. We need to ask the ministry, they need to cost the actual cost. And Mr. Speaker, in all levels of education.
How do you cost the actual cost?
For example, in secondary schools, now parents are forced to pay BOM teachers. So when you do capitation, they are not considering the issue of BOM teachers that the parents are paying. So we need to know when they are saying free, tackle the free, they need to understand that we need to understand the actual cost of education, not taking the cost on the service.
Okay.
So the final one, Mr. Speaker, is equity.
Lel Mengit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I would like to disagree with the CS for education when he just mentioned that it will take months to come up with data on what is the exact cost of education if we were to make the education in this country free. I think we are addressing a different, we are addressing a problem with different solutions, Mr. Speaker. With the task force that has been formed should incorporate 50% of data scientists. This is simple maths, Mr. Speaker. Data is available, it's only to analyze. We don't need professors, we just need a Gen Z to do a data analysis and come up with possible options on possible ways of funding these programs. So this whole, the new program is not working, Mr. Speaker, and I think we should revert back to the old program so that we can save this country and make the students work well, have a humble time to study in school. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, is on the TVETs. Recently, Mr. Speaker, adverts were placed and a certain number of teachers for particular institutions like the TVETs were advertised and interviews were done. However, only a few got the letters of appointments and in different professions on those TVET institutions. One case example is for Mgwen TVC. Adverts were done for 5 professions, yet only 2 have received the letters of appointments. And lastly, the CS. Today, the university's academic staff union commenced a strike. How are you planning to resolve this issue? Thank you.
Yes, Robert Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I wanted to just advise the CS because there is a casual comment that he made, and you know we are unanswered. When answering the question he had asked of what has happened to the 14,171 students, and he said something to do with that some of them are probably married. Now, that may have the, you know, because it's unanswered, that might annoy not just the young students, but also even the gender, because that's very, very chauvinist. Mr. Speaker, there is an issue that was raised by the Honorable Member T.J. Kajwang on the Article 94 of the Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, I want to just report that the Ministry of Education, not under his leadership, persistently has gone astray on this particular article, because he has just mentioned in his report here that the safety standards manual that they came up with. Mr. Speaker, in the strict reading of the Statutory Instruments Act on what a statutory instrument is, you realize that that is defined as one of the subsidiary legislations. So if you are coming up with a standards manual, safety standards manual for schools, then it has to have been brought to the House, Mr. Speaker, for approval. It was never brought. Now I've seen in his report, he's saying now he wants to give it some legality. Which, what it really means, Mr. Speaker, is that even if a school owner breaches the safety manual, there is nothing the ministry can do because there is no law that they have broken. So they have to be very careful. Mr. Speaker, I have only one question, and this is in regard to preparedness for grade 9 next year. In January 2025, Mr. Speaker, which is barely 3.5 months from now, you know, about 1.5 million students in grade 8 will be transitioning to grade 9. And this is in over 30,000 schools in Kenya. That means we need to have over 30,000 classrooms built for them. We need to have over 30,000 laboratories, and we need to have enough teachers. Is the ministry prepared for the next 3.5 months? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, I think just hold. We have very few left. And some have been repeat questions. Taitum, just take all of them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Where they overlap, you.
While the CS and his team are trying very hard to streamline the hiccups that there are within the ministry, and particularly with the new funding model, I would like to ask about the costing of the programs. It is very clear that while the ministry is pumping a lot of money to public universities through grants and other forms of support, most of courses, particularly the premier courses, are costing more than what is happening in private universities. For example, to train a doctor in Nairobi University,
University of Nairobi.
University of Nairobi. It is far away than training a doctor in Mount Kenya University, which is a public, which is a private university. Why do we have this difference? Whereas we know that the public universities are being supported and the private universities are not being supported.
Thank you. Deco.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to raise an issue concerning COOP's placement of students, in that we have challenges where students from far-flung areas of the region are being placed all the way from Mandera and Garissa to go and do education courses, Bachelor of Education at universities in Kisumu, Eldoret.
That is how to build a nation. Is that a big...
But there is a cost implication involved in this, Mr. Speaker. You cannot have students being picked from far-flung areas all the way to Kisumu, yet these parents cannot afford even the university fees, cannot afford accommodation in those areas. So they should consider, because we have universities within that general area. We have Garissa University, which we can place certain students, and again, picking a student from Kisumu, he will not report to Garissa University for sure. So my suggestion will be, consider certain courses that are offered in certain universities within that locality and within that region to be placed in those universities. Otherwise, we'll have them dropping out of those, reporting to those universities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last, Martin Owino. Kiamba, you came late.
Thank you.
Okay, you'll be the last.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I represent a very rural community called Ndewa constituency. And the answer which I got as a solution for lack of access to internet cannot be tolerated. Can the CS give us an elaborate strategy for making internet be accessible to students, especially in rural setting? And can he also work with the ICT ministry to make sure that happens? Added to that, the issue of Elimu scholarships, 12 billion from 2020 to 2024. How was the selection done? Can that be broken down to constituencies?
Thank you. Kiamba, the very last.
Speaker, I think I have only two short questions. One, is the fact that while we appreciate your innovativeness, because things have to change, we cannot stay the same. I was wondering what informed you when you are having the lowest band at 5%? Because when we are addressing bursaries, we know we are dealing with students who cannot pay anything. We even pay for them to the bus fare to go to school. Why don't you have those category of the invisible poor that we have been taking care of? That is my one question. The second question is, we know this country is as a paradigm shift from centralization to decentralization. And that was the major drive towards devolution. And all this was aimed at enhancing service delivery. Now we have seen with the capitation that it takes years, if not months, for schools to get capitation. If it was not for the NGDF, most of the lower schools, day schools would be closed because this capitation comes much late. I would want to understand what is the rationale or what would we really be looking for when we are trying to centralize everything, when we know the bottlenecks we have actually experienced in centralized service delivery. Thank you.
Minister, you can now answer all those very quickly.
Yes, I'll start. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll start with Dorothy. On the issue of NEMIS, it is true we have that program, but that system. But what the MTI is trying to do is not just the identification of the child, but of the means of the parents. And that is why we are combining these linkages with various other areas so that we can get them to be in the right band. And with the issue of TVET not having received any money, the TVET have already received their capitation. I think they received 4,470 million just a day or two ago, so the disbursement has already been done. We are working closely with Treasury to ensure that these resources reach the schools so that they are able to run. And Treasury, even with the hard financial situation that we are in, and you know that because of the finance bill, has tried very hard to ensure that schools get resources in order not to close. So thank you very much for caring for TVET. That's much appreciated. Honorable Sunkuli, the loan interest rate is 4%. That is charged, but it is part of the issues that is going to be considered by the committee to find out whether this 4% can be reduced. And in terms of
yes, Ferdinand, who do you want to inform?
Well, I mentioned in passing, but it's true, my TVET has not been funded, despite the fact that I contributed. That's what I said. I contributed that TVET, but the ministry has not done its part. So we had lost. I just wanted you to explain why we have done the contribution as members of parliament, but you have not put in your contribution to complete the infrastructure of this TVET.
Yes, I'm coming to your question. In fact, I was just answering Dorothy's question with respect of capitation that has not gone to schools for the students, the TVET schools. But I'm coming to the infrastructure aspects for your particular school. So I was saying it's 4%, and one of the concerns that is there is at what point should students start paying loans once they complete university studies? Is at the point where they get employment. That's the structure that we want to come up with so that at the end, you are paying what you have. And for Ferdinand, I can confirm that for your particular case, the funding has been done, and the information I have, the Kwanza TVET, yes, all the paperwork has already been done, and the funding is awaited. It is the challenge that we have with the finance bill and the resources, but the funding, all the paperwork is done for our part. Since you've contributed to it, we are aware of it, and it's not the only one. There are many others that we are struggling to ensure that we complete them so that they can become functional and utilizable. So we are on it. Paperwork is completed. We have not forgotten. And then my brother Ochanda Mweshmiwa, who trained me sometimes back in 2000 and something, if I remember, the 300,000 or so students that are in year 2 all the way to 6 are under the capitation program. That is where the 38% has already been released for them. So they are not being left out. The new funding model is only dealing with the year 1 and 2 who joined last year. So they are taken care of. They've not been left. Gashagwa talks about us going back to the old model because the variables are misleading. And again, the answer is the same. The old model was not working effectively because of the lower disbursements of government, reducing from 80% to 38% this year. So that is the reason why we are on this model, which we hope we are going to be able to improve. Oyula, Honorable Oyula, the assurance that we can give you is that the system is not being tampered with, and it cannot be tampered with. What we will find out is what the cause of that error is. If it's one incident, you know, any particular IT system sometimes has hitches, and it can cause this particular move. And all that we need to do is get in there as help and find out what is the cause of this particular movement. If it is tampered with, it will leave footprints, and we are going to be able to find out if it is, then we'll get a solution for it. But as far as we are concerned, the system is not capable of being tampered with. The linkages with KRA, where the parents have no PIN numbers, and the cobbler is listed as in band 5, again, I said this could be an error related to the data that was put in. So until we look at the case individually and find out was the data that was put in correct vis-a-vis the student, then we'll be able to determine the reason of that outcome. And of course, the appeal system is available for this particular student to go ahead and amend. My brother Murugara, you talked about standardization of, is it courses?
University fees.
University fees. The university fees is determined using there is something called...
A point of order, Mr. Speaker. Because we are still unanswered, I want to request the CS to stop referring to members. Like he just referred to the honorable member as my brother Murugara. You should refer to him appropriately.
Every member, Minister, is an honorable member. Whether he was your classmate or not, his Honorable Murugara is not your friend for purposes of these proceedings.
I'm well guided. I think I can maybe hide behind being very new. This is my first time here. I'll be very careful.
Go ahead.
Honorable Murugara, the university fees is not standard because of the various other costs that are run in various universities. So there are other costs that they factor in, and in fact I can answer this question together with the question that was raised as to why some public universities' fees is slightly maybe higher than the private universities. Because of other costs, for example, related to the number of staff that some universities have, these costs are fed in and they become part and parcel of the cost of the particular program. So they are not, the short answer to that is that they are not standardized. The member for Kajiado South, we are tired of demonstrations and that the piloting was wrong. Now, the question of whether the education for primary school is truly free is a question that we've grappled with here many times because there are other costs. In fact, I remember the last time we were here, I was told that sometimes uniforms cost more than what we are paying, and therefore it is not truly free. And this is the conversation that we are saying we need to have to ensure that if we are saying the education is free, is it truly and legally free, or are there other costs that come in and make it impossible to say it is free? So it is something that the ministry is grappling with to see what is the best way to deal with that aspect of the BOM, which comes about because we do not have perhaps enough teachers in those institutions, and the BOM, the parents have to employ some teachers to support the schools. So it is something that we are dealing with, but it is also tied to the funding and the capacity of the government to ensure that we have enough teachers in each and every institution. Lelmelit, Honorable Lelmelit. Lelmengit. We are addressing a problem with different solutions. It is true that in the committees that we have constituted, we put in a number of analysts and data statisticians to look at this model and ensure that it is as effective as possible, so that we can get it working and ensuring that the results that we'll get will be as close as possible to the reality of each individual. On the issue of the strikes that are going on, there was a strike that is taking place as we speak, which we tried to avert and we were not able to manage. They have not signed the CBA for 2021-2025. And we are at the tail end of that cycle. And there have also issues of relating to the CBA of 2017 to 2021, one or two issues pending within that CBA in implementation. And this is, again, tied down to the questions relating to availability of resources because of budgetary constraints. And again, you tie down to our finance bill. And what we were trying to negotiate with them is to ask for more time to ensure that we can come up with an answer or come up with an amicable solution to handle the issues that they have. And we are going to have another meeting with them tomorrow to see whether we can reduce the gap that we have, and maybe they'll be able to go back to work. So we are doing something about it in the difficult situation that we are in, because we have to accept that we can't run the ministry on the basis of strikes, because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of resources, and a lot of energy. Bwana Mbui, my apologies for using unparliamentary language.
He's not Bwana Mbui, he's Honorable Mbui.
Honorable Mbui, I'm sorry. Yeah, I need to go back and study this a little bit more. And the safety standards manual, we have said we are going to bring it here to ensure that we can anchor it in law so that it can have the force of law, so that where people are making a mistake or they are not complying, they can be penalized. With respect to grade 9 preparedness, we have started the construction of the 16,000 classrooms for grade 9 that have been assessed as required for grade 9, both the laboratories and the classrooms. And we are already at various stages of completion. We have classrooms that are at 3% and others are at 95%. And we are calculating that we'll finish 11,000 classrooms probably by mid-November, and thereafter we deal with the remainder of 3,000 or 4,000. Partly, there is an amount that was supposed to come through CDF, and we were supposed to work with you to do some classrooms. We are trying to push Treasury, or work with them, not push, to ensure that that money is released to you, work with yourselves, so that we can do the 3,400 classrooms that were supposed to be done by CDF. So we are working towards achieving and ensuring that by the time we are landing in January, we have all the 16,000 classrooms ready for grade 9 students who are coming in. I think I've answered the question of Taitum of costing of private, and Honorable Taitum costing more than private schools, public schools courses costing more than private schools. And that is sometimes because the private schools are running a tight ship. They have staff that are a little bit more reduced as opposed to public universities, and that's why sometimes the cost differs. Honorable Deco, the students.
Why do you take students from Garissa to Kisumu?
Yes, why we take students from Garissa to Kisumu. The students apply for certain courses and they are placed, but where a student feels they have been placed in the wrong place or they are not able to go to Kisumu, there is in that portal a link for you to apply for intertransfer so that you can transfer back to a school perhaps that is closer to where you are. Accessibility, Honorable Owino, accessibility
But
to...
Minister, if you take that route, you are going to kill the spirit of nationalism in this country. Universities are not day schools where I want to be close home. I would want to see children from Mandera in universities in Kisumu, children from Kisumu in universities in Lodwar, children from Kitui in universities in, that's how to build a nation. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was trying to avoid an issue that actually I think we need to consider, not just the students, but also university leadership, where I think in building the institutions, we should not have a problem where a university manager or university VC is not from the area of the university. We should support that. And if, as members of parliament, you give us that support, I think we'll go very far. So I agree.
Look for competence. Don't look for
competence
issues.
so that we can be able to ensure that our universities are being run competently. But we will require, as a ministry, your support, because some of the problems that are facing the universities arise out of those policies or those pressures. And the VCs tell us they are under a lot of pressure, even to retain staff that are not doing any job in the universities, leading to bloated payrolls, leading to this problem that we have where, universities are almost going under. The LIM scholarships on the internet, Honorable Owino, let me answer and say we are, as a ministry, working and sort of partnering with the Kenya Power now that is laying the internet cable so that we can be able to do last mile connectivity to this particular school so that each school has internet. And we are thinking, what we can do to ensure that for those far-flung schools where students need the internet, what would be giving them in terms of iPads, of laptops, have bundles and have solar, and we are thinking about all that to ensure that there's no child that is disadvantaged. So it is something that is in our radar, and we are working on it to ensure that internet is accessible. On the LIMU scholarships in the last 5 years, the 12 billion, we would prepare a list and share with the House on how the distribution has been and where it has gone so that you can have sight of it. Honorable Kiama talked about the why we came up with 5% for the lower cadre for Band 1. Why didn't we come with something sort of 0%, I think? I think the analysis that was done, it came up that the most vulnerable would pay a maximum of 5%. For example, in the degree, education program degree, the 5% works to 6,000 or 7,000 shillings, and it's paid in 2 terms, 3,000 in one term and 2,000 in the other term. And the student is paid an upkeep of 60,000. So based on that analysis, it was felt that even when somebody may not have completely nothing, they can actually manage to pay the 3,000 for that course. I think...
Yes, Minister, as we come to the end, I want you to I have just two issues I want to bring to your attention. The incident in Nyeri, the fire. One would have expected that by now, a fire that burns down a school, consuming and killing many, many children, there must be some criminal culpability somewhere. Either an arson or negligence on somebody who locked in the students so that they could not escape from the fire. Whichever way you look at it, there must be somebody somewhere to carry some level of criminal responsibility. And that is part of the deterrence that you can have to avoid similar incidents in future. I don't know what, as a ministry, you are doing. In the past, we used to have very quick and irrational decisions of closing down the school, canceling its license, and so on and so forth. That hasn't been done here. But investigations to show some degree of criminal responsibility and culpability is important. Number two, what brought us here, among other things, is this funding, which you have tried to explain. But you need to go and look at the issue, whatever you call it, whether it's amalgamation or whatever you call it, on management of public bursaries. From where I sit, and many members, and I've been, since we started this conversation, even governors have been calling, saying that it is a point worth following. This money comes from the same source. Everybody is administering a bursary of public resources, administration costs, corruption, thefts of this money. If you came up with a proper policy to consolidate, amalgamate, or whatever you call it, this money will go a long way in improving our education system in the country. Because as it is, these members have cases they bring to me where a parent is given a check of 15,000. The managers of their CDF take 5,000 back in some cases. There's corruption all along the way. If this money was protected, and this house is ready to give you a law to protect that money anytime you wish. And don't do it alone. We have a committee of this house that will work with you to ensure that these knee-jerk reactions that in the management of public resources come to an end so that we can be able to give this country an education system that is affordable and accessible by all. If you can look at that, I'll ask the majority leader to look at the Hansard and his team and all the members, and much sooner than later we'll recall you again. Because from where I sit, most of the issues that come to this floor are education, health, and security. Education, health, and security, all the time. And if we get those right, some of the rumbles that we see around will substantially die down. We'll come to the end of this. Yes, Lelmengit?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The CS has not answered my question.
Yes.
I need him to give me an assurance that the 5 disciplines that were advertised in Gwen TVC positions, we will get those 5 appointments in that institution. Thank you.
Minister, can you give the assurance? Hold on. Deco, I see you raising your hand. What is the issue? Or you are...
I'm okay, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't raising the hand for you. I was.
You are stretching your hand.
I was.
That is okay.
I wanted the attention of the PS higher education.
Okay. Go on, Minister. Give Lelmengit the assurance.
Yes, it is true, Honorable Lelmet, that the 5 did 5 disciplines and 2 were posted. They are doing now rationalization, and when we find that there is a discipline that is missing a trainer, would repost a trainer there. Yeah, we're working on it. They are aware of that issue. Now, the last 2 issues, Mr. Speaker, are as follows. The reason why we've not taken action on criminal culpability of the issue of Hillside is because the investigation by the DCI is not complete. We are waiting for that report. The assurance I can give this House is that if there is anybody, including our officers, if they did not do their work, we are going to take action against them, criminal and administrative, based on the report. And that is an assurance I can give this House, and it's going to be done. And once the report is done, we can even share that report with the House. On the second issue of the amalgamation of all the bursaries, all the education funds, the whole of the 27% of our budget, all the Arambes we go to, and this is a lot of money in the education sector. It is in billions. All the scholarships that we get from various places. It is true that this is a conversation that, together with this House, the ministry can come up with a policy. As we agreed, we have statisticians, get the right figures, do the math, and then ensure that we have the proper legal regime that can be able to protect and ring-fence those funds so that we don't have these questions of students will just wake up and go to school and payments will be done. So with your support, it is something that as a ministry, we are willing to lead, and as soon as possible, through the normal process of public participation, etc., it's something that we can do, and it's an assurance that I can give the House that I picked it up, and I'm going to start working on it, and I will share the policy or the guidelines so that we can move together. I think it is time. I think the goodwill is there. I think it's the time to have that discussion, and we can be able to achieve it. So,
there's a Kenyan who is in court in Nakuru, yes, forcing you to do that.
I mean, it's the right thing to do. We just need the goodwill from the public. We manage the backlash, then we go ahead and have this. Because education touches everybody. I contribute every day myself. You contribute. If we did that math against everything else, the funds are probably sufficient to run a completely free education in this country. But
thank you, CS. We'll now release you and your team to go back to your office. We'll go to the next order.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
Maungu, what
thank
was
you,
it?
honorable members.
We are done with the minister. I've released him.
Order number 9, motion, enhancing reporting of parliamentary business on online platforms. Resumption of debate.
Who was on the floor? There's nobody on the floor. Mark Mwenje, are you keying in for this? There's no interest in the order.
Order number 10, motion, report on the consolidated fund services expenditures for the supplementary estimates 1 for the financial year 24-25. Resumption of debate.
Chairman, public debt, is he there? Was anybody on the floor on this? Next.
Order number 11, motion, public petition on funds spent contrary to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution. Resumption of debate.
Was there anybody on the floor? Next.
Order number 12, motion. Implementation status of reports on petitions and resolutions passed by the House.
Chairperson, Committee on Implementation. Did I see Wanjala here? Next.
Order number 13, motion. Alleged unfair trade practices by foreign investors in Kenya.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Trade. Next.
Order number 14, motion. Second report on employment diversity audit in public institutions.
National Cohesion and Equal Opportunity Committee. Next.
Order number 15, motion. Report of the extraordinary session of the 6th Pan-African Parliament, PAP.
Member of PAP? None. Next.
Order number 16, the Equalization Fund Administration Bill, Senate Bill number 14 of 2023, second reading.
Committee on Finance and Planning. Kimani? Not here. Next.
Order number 17, motion. Consideration of reports on financial statements of state corporations, Nyanza region.
Jack, you are ready to move?
Just 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Then we proceed, yeah.
Now, what shall we do in those 5 minutes? It is the only business that we have now. If you are ready, we give you an opportunity to move. And I encourage all members who have business in the House to come ready as if you are the one on top. Because you can see when they all collapse, we even reach you at the very bottom. So, honorable members, it's clear members are not here. And that being the case, we'll adjourn the House. Yeah. Read the last one.
Order number 18, the Kenya National Library Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 20 of 2023, second reading.
Departmental Committee on Sports and Culture. Mwenje, you are the only leadership of the House in the House. Can you communicate to your colleagues that all members who have business in the House, regardless of where they are, and clerks, you must desist from informing members that business on the order paper will not be reached. Because once business on the order paper is presumed that it will be reached. So that if one collapses, we must have another to come on. So Mwenje, talk to your colleagues on both sides of the House that chairmen of committees who have business must strive to be in the House at all times, regardless. Our honorable members, will you be upstanding? It is now 6:47 p.m. and it's now time to adjourn the House, and the House stands adjourned until